Hi, everyone. Welcome to InsurTech Denver Commercial Auto Telematics. My name is Francesca from InsurTech Denver, and I'm super excited for us to kick off to this amazing panel this afternoon. The host is going to be our one and only Daniel. He is our founder of Denver InsurTech, and we will go ahead and kick it off to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Francesca. All right. Very excited for an amazing panel. We have three industry executives here from Great American, Cover Whale, and FluidTrucks. And with that, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. Keep it to 30 seconds to a minute if you don't mind. And we'll start with Courtney Claflin. Courtney.
Hello, everybody. My name is Courtney Claflin. I am head of insurance at an organization called FluidTruck, headquartered here in Denver, Colorado, where we rent out via our application on your phone, box vans, trucks, box trucks. My background is building insurance companies for organizations. They're called captive insurance companies. And I came here to Fluid to do that. And obviously, telematics is a big part of managing risk and managing your exposure to risk. So I'm happy to be here, and thanks for having me, Daniel.
Thank you, Courtney. Over to Carly Levin.
Hi, Carly Levin. I am Chief Strategy Officer at Cover Whale. At Cover Whale, we are an MGA that's focused on insuring commercial trucks. We work with the owner-operator side of the commercial trucks, and our goal is to keep the roads safe. And a lot of the way that we do that is through telematics. We actually send every policyholder a camera so that they can keep an eye on driving safe on the roads, and we will reach out and coach and help those drivers as necessary using that telematics. We think it's a core part of our program. Prior to Cover Whale, I was at JP Morgan for a very long time, focused in the investment bank on technology companies.
Great. Thank you. And last but not least, Hobie Bond from Great American. Hobie.
Hi there. I'm Hobie Bond. I work for Great American as the Data Strategy Director for the Enterprise Telematics Program. Our current focus is on the National Interstate brand, which is an interesting mixture of insurance focused on commercial auto fleets. And we're working with those fleets to deliver value through our telematics program, whether that would be through loss control, risk management consulting, also understanding the exposure, and then, of course, eventually getting to a point where we're underwriting and rating with that data as well. So excited to be here. Appreciate the invitation.
Thank you. Thanks for being with us. Thanks to everybody for being with us. Okay, so we have a 45-minute session here. We're going to have a series of questions, and then we'll take any Q&A from the audience. And I have this up on my phone, and we also get the stream into StreamYard here. So should have some questions at the end to get to, but let's kick it off with first question. This goes to Carly to start. What operational advantages does telematics give you and Cover Whale? Can you tell us about that?
So as an InsurTech, something that is unique about Cover Whale is that we've been focused on loss ratio from day one. So not just having an easy way to distribute the insurance or the product, but also how do we manage our loss ratio? How do we have best-in-class loss ratios in a historically very difficult space? And the way that we have been able to achieve that is through telematics. We really believe in the telematics program and think that it has a meaningful impact on that loss ratio when we are able to, one, have drivers install the camera. Just installing the camera alone has a big impact. It's someone who's willing to sign up, raise their hand, and say, I want to drive safe and I'm okay doing this. And then two, when we do see incidents, reaching out and coaching and advising drivers to make sure that they are driving safely. So it's a measurable impact on our book. We can see we had programs a few years ago without cameras versus the programs today with cameras, what the difference is in those programs. So we believe that has a huge impact on our operations.
Okay, great. Courtney, how about you? How about FluidTrucks? What's the impact or what advantages do you think it gives you over your competitors?
Yeah, our focus is on our own vehicles. So we rent vans, box trucks, and pickups across the United States in about 400 cities. And what I can do is echo everything Carly just said. In addition to that, what it does is our telematics platform gives us real-time feedback into mechanical issues on the vehicle, so that we know if there's something that's not operating appropriately on the vehicle. To Carly's point, we monitor driving behavior, so starts, stops, turns, speeds, accidents, things of that nature, so that we have information in our fingertips, and our telematics, excuse me, they can flag any type of aberrant behavior or driving behavior on a vehicle, so that it can help us manage our risk from that perspective. And then I think a really important one is that we've developed a proprietary scoring methodology where our drivers are in constant competition for top scores across the country, which allows them to have rewards. So all of this data that comes from our telematics platform, it number one allows us as an organization to manage and mitigate our risk as much as possible. But number two, and probably more importantly, it allows us to drive driver behavior and reward good behavior, and manage behavior that might be a bit aberrant.
Yeah, sounds like gamification, rewards is always powerful. Incentives, that's great. Hobie, over to you.
Yeah, I would echo what they said. I think there are probably three core advantages that a telematics program offers that I'd highlight. The first is understanding the exposure. Today you count on the agent and the customer to tell you where they're driving, what territory they're operating in, what the radius of operation is. So many of the classic rating variables that are contemplated in the old ISO-based rating models for commercial auto, and you're kind of counting on the customer and the agent to tell you what's true. Well, telematics is the unvarnished truth. You know where they're operating, how much they're operating, what their radius is, what that looks like, in addition to the behavioral aspects that both Courtney and Carly highlighted. The second then is really around loss control. So many of our accounts are assigned full-time professional loss control associates. These folks are experts in safety consulting and coaching, and telematics is a really great tool in the toolbox of a loss control associate to be able to offer that consultative experience for the customer. How do they coach? What behaviors should be coached? Tying that in with driver rewards or gamification, I think is really imperative. And then the last thing is the claims adjudication process itself. There's an interesting statistic that of all of the accidents involving particularly heavy vehicles, the estimate is that less than 40% of those accidents are the fault of the driver of the heavy vehicle, which means people are pulling out in front of the vehicle. You can't get 80,000 pounds of vehicle stopped in time. If you have that forward-facing dash cam that Carly talked about, it's the truth of exactly what happened and how it happened. And so our claims professionals are super excited to be able to get that information and make faster decisions about whether a claim is our fault or there's some contributing circumstances. And so those are really, I think, the three primary advantages that we're experiencing and enjoying. I'll just add one more, and this is very practical because it just came across the wire the other day, and that is, you can geofence vehicles with your telematics device. And we recently had a vehicle that was stolen, and within an hour, we knew exactly where it was. We called the police. The police had the vehicle. It was back in the hands of our customer about an hour later. That's exciting. So you don't have to write a check for a new vehicle or a replacement vehicle, and the customer is back in business, delivering product or continuing their service faster than having to wait several days in order to get a replacement vehicle. So just a few practical and tangible ways that telematics provides an advantage.
Yeah, and that thief is out of business, and it's
Well,
put everybody
yeah.
else on notice,
That's
right?
exactly right.
Right, word gets around.
Exactly right. Yes.
We say second pair of eyes in underwriting, but we also mean that in claims, and increasingly the camera is that source of truth. All right, let's go to the next question, which comes from comments made by one of my favorite thought leaders in InsurTech, particularly for telematics. I think he is regarded as the world's leader, if not then one of them, Matteo Carboni, who says on April 25th, he wrote, "Distraction is surging, a call to action for auto insurers." So, Hobie, you said that only 40% of the accidents are the fault of the drivers, but this would actually be in that minority.
Sure.
So how are you seeing this in your book? Because you get that camera, you get front, you get in the cabin, right? So and also, how are you attempting to incentivize drivers to stop that bad behavior? Hobie, start with you.
Yeah, so I would say we're probably a tiny bit behind the curve on that, because many of our camera programs are primarily forward-facing, and so you don't have that rear-facing distracted driver AI that's running. And if you don't have an app on the phone that's being able to, keep track of that texting while you're driving concept, it's difficult. For those that we do, that's certainly part of our coaching program. It's part of our standard loss control consulting program that we offer to really, drive that behavior out. I think it's also interesting, a number of states are pursuing, legislative directively to say, look, you cannot have the phone in your hand. You cannot be distracted in that way. And in those states where the legislation has passed, you're seeing improvements in that. But it's an age-old battle, and it's a challenge that I think all of us have to face. And telematics is one of the vehicles that you have to do that.
All right, Curly, how about with CoverWell?
I think an opportunity here is that historically in underwriting, you would underwrite on day 1 and on day 365, and you would be asking questions, to Hobie's point earlier, and hoping for the truth. Now we have a source of truth where we can underwrite every single day of the year, every single month of the year. And the technology is just getting better and better and better. Not just cameras within the car, but cameras externally. We've seen studies where traffic cameras are picking up distracted drivers and picking up drivers on the phone. So that technology all around the globe will continue to improve, and it's improving very rapidly with AI. So it's continuing to monitor the portfolio on a daily basis, and it's using not just the camera in the car, but all sorts of different ways to test.
Great. And Courtney?
Yeah, all of our telematics is hardwired into the car, so it's not app based, and we get so many data points from it that we're just in time on our feedback. And whether it's a safety issue, a mechanical issue with the vehicle, or driving behavior, there's certain flag points that will flag us as the renter of the vehicle. And we can take action in a couple of different ways. We can do it with reporting back bad behavior via the score. We can exclude drivers as the borrower. We can exclude them. And then in certain egregious situations, either driving behavior, theft, things of that nature, we can disable the vehicle so that it can't go anywhere. So I think we come to it from a variety of different areas. And I'm not a technology guy. You're lucky I could click the link to get into this. But from an insurance perspective, and I've been here a year, right? Fluid in its current business model is about 3.5, maybe 4 years old, and growing exponentially. And so we're starting to set up the framework of data, because to me, the most important thing in building and running insurance companies is data. I need data, 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 data. And I think the way that we do our insurance today with the captive, it will evolve as we go. And a lot of this data from the telematics, the behavior, the guideposts, that's going to be very, very helpful to me as an insurance architect as to, pricing, geography, driving recommendations, those kinds of things.
Nice. Courtney, we're going to stay with you for the next question. But before I do that, I want to pause real quickly because we have many viewers and some of them joined after the beginning. I'm Daniel Turgel, Vice President of Underwriting for Topsail Re and founder of InsurTech Denver. This is InsurTech Denver Commercial Auto Telematics panel. We have Levin, from Cover Whale. We have Hobie Bond from Great American and Courtney Claflin from FluidTrucks. And I have to say this disclaimer, which I should have said at the beginning, but none of our comments reflect the views and opinions of the organizations that we work for respectively. We're talking, of course, we're professionals in the industry, but we are here representing ourselves and our own opinions. So with every advance, and I think telematics, we all agree, is an advance for the insurance industry, getting us, we've heard, better data, more timely, allowing us to coach drivers. It's just improving, which I think, as I've been in the insurance industry now for a long time, is clearly one of the main purposes and benefits of insurance, not just to finance risk, but also to reduce risk, especially over time. However, it's always a little bit of problems with any sort of new technology. So the NAIC, the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, has said new IoT products may also lead to new types of applications and claims fraud. As a result, IoT may require an expansion in data security and fraud protection. Additionally, data privacy is a key concern for state insurance regulators. So what do you think about the relationship between your telematics-based product offerings benefits and the concurrent increase in cyber risk? Is cyber security considered every time you consider that expansion in data sources and hardware and software? And Courtney, you just said you're still putting together the complete data structures and everything that will lay the foundation for a very long future of captive insurance for Fluid. So let's go right back to you, Courtney. How do you feel about the cyber risk that's also increasing?
Well, Daniel, that's a really, really good question. For perspective, I came here from the University of California system. So we had 10 universities, 5 academic medical centers, 3 national labs, 300,000 employees. and I've built and ran captives for UC. And the only thing I really know, I finance risk. I don't manage risk. But the only thing I tell all my audiences all the time is if somebody wants you, they're going to get you. It's cyber. I mean, that's the honest to goodness truth. I mean, we got hacked. Hospitals get hacked. Governments get hacked. Everybody gets hacked. So I go into it, at least from an insurance perspective, saying, okay, how do I protect us with limits, insurance limits, and proper coverage from a cyber perspective? So that, with that as background, if you float that over to Fluid or to any of the other organizations, cyber is at the forefront of every decision you make as it pertains to new cloud systems, new computers, new operating systems, new everything. And so I'm not that expert, but just from a top of the funnel standpoint, yeah, it's always on the brain. I can't do anything about it because I don't know anything about it. But I know that every organization has got those people that do that, and certainly we're no exception to that role.
Okay. How about Hobie? How is Great American thinking about this? How are you thinking about this?
Yeah, I would say same as Courtney. It's an everyday thing. We have obvious checks and balances in place. If we're going to work with a data provider, whether that's a telematics company or a third-party source, we have rigorous information security processes that we go through. There's authentication processes that you go through in order to obtain access to customer data. You want it to be secured in the right kind of best in class formats. We also add internal controls in place, right? You only want the people that need the data to have the data, and that it's either masked in the right way or it's protected in the right way. But as Courtney said, if they're after you, they're after you. And unfortunately, there are bad actors. But I would just say make sure that the companies you're working with outside of your organization are as serious about information security and data security as you are. That's obviously number one, because if they're the weak link in the feed, that's going to be problematic. Your processes rely on your experts. We've have experts within Great American that understand this stuff 100 times better than I do, and we take their lead and their coaching on it. And then do the practical things. The password changes, the single sign-on capabilities, all of those kinds of best-in-class capabilities that ensure that you are as protected as possible. And then I even heard one guy say, it's like, don't talk about it a lot publicly, because if you're putting yourself out there as, hey, we've got this thing figured out, you almost like put the target on your back, so don't become a target for the bad actors. So I was hesitant to even answer this question to suggest that we're got this figured out, but we're thinking about it very regularly and seriously.
And Curly?
Yeah, would agree with all of those points, and would add train your employees too, where we've been going through processes of training each and every single employee so that everyone's on the lookout for it. Came from JP Morgan, certainly an issue there, certainly something that we thought about all of the time. So it's not isolated to telematics, and it's not isolated to insurance. It's a problem for everyone everywhere.
Right.
It's a problem. And I can tell you as a cyber underwriter, it's a huge problem. Obviously, the cyber insurance line of business has arisen rapidly and continues to grow. And I assume that probably some of your organizations need your own cyber insurance because of all of this data that is being collected and potentially exposed by hackers. So we're talking with Courtney Claflin from FluidTruck, Curly Levin from CoverWell, and Hobie Bond from Great American. It's so nice to have such a great mix of incumbent insurer, one of the best in the world, startup MGA, now one of the best in the world, I think, in commercial auto, and FluidTrucks is a actual carrier, not an insurance carrier, but a transportation carrier, also a startup from the last many years, from the last decade, and based right here in Denver. Thank you all again for being with us. We're starting to get some questions from the audience, and I want to both thank the audience and encourage those questions. Keep them coming. We're going to get to them. We've got a couple more of ours, and then we're going to get to your questions. So this question is for, starting with Curly. CoverWell has a chief AI officer that we've noted on LinkedIn that you all have promoted, hired, and been talking about. How is this role related to telematics? And is there anything similar at Great American or Fluid? So Curly, this is billed as the first chief AI officer in the industry, which is exciting. So tell us more about it and how it relates to telematics.
Yeah, so Darian Acosta was promoted into the Chief AI Officer role a few months back. We are very excited to have him in that role. This is absolutely related to telematics. We truly believe that we are scratching the surface in terms of what we can do with the data that we have today. We're doing that basic blocking and tackling with the data that we have to do, the very low-hanging fruit. What Darian and his team are starting to look at is how do we get more and more advanced in using this data for conversations with our actual policyholders, conversations with our agents for more accurate pricing. This can go in any number of directions, and we wanted to create the space for Darian to not just do the day-to-day work, but to really step back and have a team that is 100% focused on this technology that we see is very clearly going to change the industry. So we thought it was important to carve out that separate space for him and give him the role and the bandwidth and the room to run to see what we can build. I would also add that across the firm, we are encouraging everybody to leverage AI tools and generative AI tools. We ask every single employee in the firm to test it out and to try a way to incorporate it into their day-to-day experience, just because we believe fundamentally that it's here to stay and it's going to be an important part of the industry.
All right. I like the phrase, show me your budget, I'll show you your values, is what I've heard from the president, who said his father used to say that to him. So Courtney, over to you. Is there any type of AI specialization, a certain person or group at Fluid that is taking on a similar role?
Yeah, there is. We haven't got to the point that Carly's organization has yet, but I do know Fluid is looking in and testing AI at various levels. We are a technology company, so it makes sense that we would say, okay, how can this help us as an organization? And we do have a group that does that. As far as it pertains to insurance, in my discipline and the insurance company that I run, nothing as of now. That does not mean that it's not going to be there in the future. But, you know, as I tell people, I'm a hockey player from North Dakota. That stuff's not going to trickle down to me for quite a bit of time.
Very nice. Okay. And Hobie.
Yes. So we also, like Courtney, don't have an official chief AI officer. We do have a chief data and analytics officer, and both he and his team have been charged within Great American to explore how AI and machine learning technology in particular can help us accomplish our strategic objectives. And so among those certainly is telematics. But Great American is a pretty eclectic mixture of specialty insurance lines. And so we are looking at AI and machine learning across a variety of applications. And right now it sits within that chief data and analytics officer role and the team that he leads. But ultimately we're leaning into it, you know, collecting the use cases from across the organization where we believe AI will play a role, and exploring how we lean in on that technology to add value and create a strategic advantage in that way. So certainly top of mind as part of our broader data analytics office and the work that he does.
Great. Okay. I have one last question for us, but I'm going to hold it because I want to get to some of these questions that are continue to come in on the chat. So first, from my colleague, Rob Lee Womack. Thanks, Rob Lee. Given all the collected data points are there, is there any correlation or benefits that cross over into other lines of business? Hobie, stay with you for that one, because you just said it's a very eclectic, and we don't have to have everyone respond to some of these questions. May be appropriate for just one of you, but let's start here with Hobie, and if Courtney and Curly want to say anything after that, we'll go to them. But Hobie, how is that? Is there correlation? What are you seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, if you're writing only the commercial auto, then that's the application, right? But with a company like Great American and probably many other carriers that are looking at package account writing, the most obvious place you would apply the telematics factor is in workers' comp. There's a strong correlation between automobile accidents and worker injuries. And if you can reduce accidents or the severity of accidents, you're going to reduce the frequency and severity of workers' comp claims. Pretty significant correlation in that space. In addition, there is some thinking, although I haven't seen actual research, that behavioral aspects within the fleet could carry over to behavioral aspects within the general liability line. And certainly that, I would suppose there's correlation there, but I have not actually seen any studies, but I have seen specific correlations within the workers' comp space, and that is probably the most obvious. And I would just say, Carly led with this idea that we want the roads to be safer. We want our insureds to be safer. There is nothing more than important than sending your drivers home safely at night to their family. And so, if you're reducing risky behavior, you're reducing accidents, you're reducing workers' injuries, people are going home every night to their families. They're coming into work the next day knowing that whether it's their carrier or their company that they work for, safety is a top concern. And at the end of the day, you want that worker to go home safely. And then as a business owner, you want to keep your revenue stream up and running, right? A worker who's off work for a couple of weeks because of an injury is not a productive worker, and that's going to have an impact on the revenue of the organization as well. So telematics obviously has huge implications in the insurance equation, but at the end of the day, I think few people deny the fact that it has massive implications for how a business is run and the productivity of the individual clients that we serve from an insurance perspective.
Great.
I'll just add one really neat, obvious thing is that it is measurable. That Hobie can do that study and can go in and measure it against what other lines the policyholder holds. That's not something that's always historically been true. So I think we're at an amazing point in time where we can quickly get an answer to that question.
Yeah, and I'd add real quick from an insurance company owner perspective, like Fluid's captive insurance company, is that I strive for risk distribution, because we all understand insurance 101. Insurance, the haves subsidize the have-nots. And the more haves I have, that was kind of redundant, but the more haves I have, the better the operating company is going to be. Because one thing about insurance companies is something is going to squish out the edges and have a bad year, particularly private held companies like ours and the ones that I built at UC, is that something's going to go bad somewhere. And if I have a really strong portfolio of, like, I've put over 50 lines of coverage in a captive before. So if I've got 35, 40 really good lines of coverage, and some of these others have a down year, it all levels out and the company is still strong and stable. And so this technology, telematics, what it can do is it can make this big exposure, because it's one of an insurance company's main exposures is auto. It can make it more predictable, quantifiable, and then and allow you to use the positive results here to offset any negative results that another line may have.
Great. We only have so much time left. Again, talking with Courtney Claflin from FluidTruck, Carly Levin from CoverWhale and Hobie Bond from Great American. I'm going to go to the next question on the list, which is, I would like to ask about which particular technologies each of the organizations are using in their programs, app, hardwired, dongle, and which providers. Now, I know that may be private information that you cannot tell us, but tell us what you can tell us if you can. Courtney, back to you, because you had said earlier on this panel that it's built into every truck. Tell us more.
Yeah, it's just a telematics platform that's harnessed and hardwired into the bottom of the vehicle. That's it.
Simple as that.
Now, Fluid is a technology company that has its proprietary technology sitting in the phone. So you can order a vehicle in over 400 markets in the United States. You go get it and pick it up. I don't know any of that. To be honest with you, I don't know what kind of guts go into that technology, nor do I know the kind of guts that go into the telematics. I do know from a telematics perspective as insurance, I do know the outcomes, and it's a very, very robust outcome that will allow us to mitigate and manage risk on a go-forward basis.
Great. Anyone else want to offer an answer to the question about the actual technology?
I would offer that our primary strategy is to embrace the telematics service that our customers embrace. Okay. So we're not necessarily prescribing or requiring a particular telematic service provider. Many of our customers are larger fleets to begin with, and they already have telematics. We didn't have to sell them on the idea to go get telematics. They're using it to manage their business completely independent of the insurance equation. And so it's up to us now to figure out how do we integrate and interact with the TSPs that our customers have chosen. Now, the typical ones are what you would probably think of when you think of trucking and various fleet services. So the Samsaras, the Lytixes, the Geotabs, the Motives, the Netrodynes, they're the bigger players in the market. But we have customers that have, a variety. I believe there's over 100 TSPs in operation in the United States. We're certainly not going to try to work with all of them, but we certainly want to be able to work with those that overlap most significantly with the ones our customers have chosen. And so our priority is really, we take the lead of our customers and provide the support and capabilities based on the choices they have made as part of running their business.
Okay. Cool.
And we are hardwired in today. We're fortunate to work with a few different camera vendors, and all of ours are cameras today. Open to different. I like to use the term "bring your own device" strategy, which it sounds like Hobie's using today.
That's right.
But I think that's a future initiative for CoverWheel.
BYOD device, and that's actually I think that term is picking up a lot of steam. Haha. Okay. So we've got another question from Mark Wheeler, our founder of InsurTech Denver, co-founder along with me. He asks, what legal obligation exists for a company to surrender driving data to a legal request or authority? And I'll just, I see Tesla on the personal auto side is now making all of their data available after having gotten, legal pressure. They're, of course, Tesla. So naturally, somebody was going to be seeking that data, of course. But in trucking, it's probably a little bit less public, right? And less of an issue. So what can you tell us?
I'll start. So the data, the customer owns the data. I mean, it's their data. They have contracted with the telematics company to have that service provided, so they own the data. The way we approach that is through a data sharing agreement. So if they are keen on sharing their data, they'll sign a DSA, a data sharing agreement, which gives us the legal authority to be able to fetch the data. And as long as that consent is in place, and as long as they remain an active customer with us, we will continue to pull their data from their telematics company. They can, of course, rescind that at any point in time. That is a provision in every DSA. And if they were to terminate, either by their choice or ours, that would, of course, terminate the flow of data as well. But it's all based on that customer consent. It's a legal contract that we've had lots of help with our inside counsel to craft the language to make it high and tight for the customer.
Okay. Courtney or Curly, anything to add?
I have no idea. That's a question for our general counsel.
Cool. That's a good answer.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's a question for Courtney. Gamification, which you mentioned earlier, works for many. However, what about the employees, or I assume that also refers to the drivers, who don't want the FluidTruck app on their phones? Do you have advice for folks on how to overcome this objection and or change attitudes? It sounds like not from what you've said, but maybe there is something. What would you say?
I don't know if I understand what's the
gamification, the award system, and the you said early that they can compete to be the best, right? That's a form of gamification. You give rewards for that. That's a perfect example of gamification. So can folks opt out of that, or no?
No, but not to my knowledge, because it's the root of it is the telematics, which are hardwired to the vehicle. And which sends us data. And what we do with that data is many, many things, obviously, but one of them is to create driver scores.
Yep.
So that we can reward good behavior, and so that we can coach up aberrant behavior. So no, it's part and parcel of the whole experience.
It sounds like that's the case for everyone. But perhaps a better question then is, what are the rewards? What rewards do you give? Is it just, hey, you're going to get a better rate in the future, right? Is there that premium reduction reward, or are we sending corporate swag or some gift baskets, points? How does it work?
Well, I think there's a short term and there's a long term. I mean, obviously there's monetary rewards, but also on a long term basis, if you take a look at any of us sitting in this panel right now, what's in the future is UBI, usage-based insurance, and it's coming on strong. It's taken insurance commissioners across the United States a long time to get their heads around it, because the rates are much less expensive than commercial rates today, because you have a vehicle, this is the make, the model, your territory, here's your premium for 6 months or a year. Well, with UBI, we're going to charge by the mile. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, when you talk about rewards, you talk about rewards, not only cash incentives or prizes or whatever the fact may be, but now you talk to, when we get into UBI and you have the ability to purchase insurance based on your usage and your driving behavior. That's going to be a big deal. And that'll also turn into money as it pertains. And I'm sure Carly and Hobie will comment on this too, is once our industry gets enough actuarial data, then we're going to be able to do some magnificent things from an insurance company perspective for drivers, both from incentives to pricing to rewards to the whole kit and caboodle.
Anything to add to that real quick, Hobie or Curly? Curly?
Tip of the iceberg today, we are offering safe driver discounts. So we have a ton of driving data. We've got a whole year's worth of driving data. So when it comes to renewals, we know who are fantastic drivers, and many, many drivers in our portfolio are fantastic drivers. So to those who have outperformed throughout the year, we are offering a safe driver discount, which can be fairly significant.
Great.
Yeah, so I won't get into the specifics of what we're doing at Great American. What I'll tell you is what I've seen across the industry that's been reported. Number one, the holy grail, I think, for most customers is the premium discount. If you can generate safe driving behaviors, they should be rewarded with an appropriate premium. To get there, I think there's a variety of mechanisms that I have heard other companies use, from competing for gift cards. I'm aware of at least one company that at the beginning of every month puts a chunk of money into an account for each driver, and then every adverse event that they have during the month, they take $10 away from it. And at the end of the month, whatever dollars are left, they send it to the driver's significant other. Now, notice what I said there. So now you not only have the incentive for that cash reward at the end of the month, but you have your significant other saying, "Hey, how much did you start this month with? Was it $250 and I only got a check for 20?" So I think there's ways around. Certainly one of the things we're thinking about is behavior modification is not my specialty. I'm a data guy. I'm an actuary by training, so I don't understand behavior mod except for what my wife tells me. So you have to explore that with your customers. You have to explore that in a captive setting. I think there's an interesting scenario. And Great American and National Interstate in particular have quite a few captives that we work with. There's a natural gamification that occurs within the captive program as well. And so you really need to understand your customers. You need to understand how you're going to market with the products that you offer. Listen to your customers, whether that's a feedback mechanism directly from them or through the loss control rep. Understand what it is that incents them to better behavior. Because at the end of the day, as we said, we want drivers to go home safe. We want fewer accidents. We want less frequency and less severity. And it all starts with better behavior, reducing the ABCs: acceleration, braking, cornering, speeding, etc. So, understand your customer and put programs in place that address that accordingly.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you, Hobie Bond from Great American, Carly Levin from Cover Whale, and Courtney Claflin from FluidTrucks. This has been InsurTech Denver's commercial auto telematics virtual panel. Thank you to our panelists here. Thank you to everyone who tuned in, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. Have a great afternoon.
Awesome. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.